Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all to this week's lesson on the online class. And inshallah, as I have said in the last lesson, that we shall be revising all the topics we have treated so far in this particular subject, and we are going to look at them section by section. The first section we will look at has to do with the basic concept in agriculture. Under these basic concepts, we have topics as you have seen on the screen. The first one, meaning and importance of agriculture, to be followed by problems of agricultural development and possible solutions. After that, meaning and differences between subsistence and commercial agriculture. Next is role of government in agricultural development, and the last one is the role of non-governmental organizations in agricultural development, and the last one is agricultural laws and land reforms. All these areas that I want to revise on, we will look at them from some of objective questions that has been carved out from past questions, and they are, so the first one we have here is number 1. A major weakness of agricultural development program in West Africa is dash. As we all know, we have studied problem and possible solution to agricultural development. That is the main topic under that particular section. So with this, the area we have looked at during our class teaching as in reference to Nigeria and in West Africa. If you have studied in detail what happens in Nigeria, since Nigeria is part of West African country, so the same problem is likely to affect all the other countries within the West African zone. So this question is now asking what is the major weakness in agricultural development, and the options we have here: 1. Excessive dependence on government and universities. B. Failure of cooperative organizations to execute programs. C. Poorly organized and ineffective agricultural extension services. D. Sole dependency on cash crops for foreign reserves. All these ones highlighted here, 3 options A, B, C are weakness of agricultural development program, but the most major one out of all these ones listed in this option is that of poorly organized and ineffective agricultural extension services. Because in order to improve agricultural production, which is one of those possible solutions we have identified, is that if extension services is strongly executed, it means, because the role of this agricultural extension services is to help improve agricultural production through mechanized farming and a modern way of carrying out farming activities. So if that has been put in place and is well organized, it is poorly organized in this sense that there are some extension program that the first principle under that extension program should be based on the need of the people, and if they are executing a particular extension program that they don't consider the need of the people, they want to disseminate such extension ideas to, it means that it will not going to work in that particular location. And that's why for this particular question, poorly organized and ineffective agricultural extension services is the correct answer. So we go ahead to look at question 2. The feature which differentiates a subsistence farmer from a commercial farmer is that the farmer, which we are talking about here, the subsistence farmer. The first option says engaged in large-scale production. B. Maintains small farm holdings. C. Make use of farm machines. D. Specialize in agricultural production. When we look at the 2 forms of agricultural farming, which is the subsistence farming and commercial farming, we identify their characteristics. From this particular question, what they have put together here is the characteristics of the two of them. Engaged in large-scale production is the characteristics of a commercial farmer. Make use of farm machine is the characteristics of commercial farming. Specialized in agricultural production is the characteristics of a commercial farming. Where maintain small farm holding is a major characteristic of a subsistence farming. With this question, this is the way this question has come. In theory question, they may ask you differentiate between these two forms of agricultural farming. Once you know their characteristics, it is based on the characteristics and a particular point that relate together. You just need to draw out. So with this particular question here, maintain small farm holding is the correct option here, which differentiates a subsistence farmer from a commercial farmer. So with this question, we have been able to treat what are the characteristics of subsistence farming and commercial farming. Other characteristics of this subsistence farming could be use of crude implements, no storage facility in place, farming on a small area of land, diseases are not controlled, and so on. That is their own characteristics, and from there we can draw the difference between the two forms of agricultural farming. So we go now to the next question, and that's question 3. The main aim of establishing plant quarantine services is to dash. If you remember too, this one is this question feature here under this particular section we are looking at, because we have been part of the question, part of the topics we treated under this section is problems of agriculture, and problem of pests and disease is one of them. And in order to control pests and disease, and that's why this plant quarantine service or animal quarantine service comes up. And what is plant or animal quarantine? It is when we isolate our animals or crops before introducing them to the farm or introducing them to a new location to see whether they have any foreign pests or any foreign disease with them, so that we will not import into our farm new pests or new disease. So let's go back to the question. The main aim of establishing plant quarantine services is to dash 1. Encourage breeding of new varieties. Wrong. Improve the varieties of crop being imported. Wrong. Maintain genetic purity of imported crops. Wrong. And the last one, prevent incoming diseases and pests. From the definition of plant quarantine and animal quarantine, we will know that option D is the correct answer, because we isolate them to see whether they have any foreign disease with them. But all these other options is not within this section we are looking at, but other section of crop improvement and the rest. And we will see that encourage the breeding of a new variety is an aim of crop improvement and the other ones. So to question 4. Question 4 comes from the area of agricultural lands and agricultural laws and land reforms. So this question says, land legislation by government is important in agriculture because is dash. Option A, promote urban development. 2, helps government acquire land easily. C, promote crop and livestock production. D, make land available for building houses. The major aim of land legislation by government, where law have been put in place on the land usage, is not because of anything but to promote crop and animal production, and that's why the Land Use Decree Act come into existence. The next question. The land tenure system, in which land is held for a fixed period on specified condition, is described as dash. Here we look at land tenure system, which is the acquisition or ownership of land, whether for a temporary or permanent use, either from individual, family, or government. Now, to claim, we now have these different forms of ownership, and that's when we are talking about the different types of land tenure system. And here are some of them listed in this option. The freehold is the same thing we know as the purchase, when you have to pay for a land and you become the rightful owner of such a land. The inheritance land tenure system, it is when you inherit, or the land is being passed down from your parents or from your generation over to you, for you to become the ownership of that land. And C, leasehold. Leasehold has to do with land ownership, which there is a contract between two parties. The person we call the leaseor and the lease. The leaseor is the person leasing out the land to a lease, the person who is going to claim the ownership of that particular land over a particular period of time with some conditions in place. And the last one, by pledge, is also known as free gift, when a land is dashed out to an individual, maybe as a result of the good thing you have done to the person. That type of land tenure system is what we call the pledge. Other ones is one we have communal land tenure system, whereby member of the community claim the ownership of a particular piece of land, or tenants at the will of the government, whereby the land belongs to the government and government give out the land to potential farmers for agricultural production. So this question is now asking us that which of the particular land tenure system that the land is held for a fixed period on specified condition is described as which one of these options. So the correct one here will be the leasehold, because we have said that land is going to be leased out for a particular period of time under a specific conditions. So that's why C is the correct answer for that particular question. So we go ahead to question 6. Question 6 says, which of the following is an economic factor that affects the use of land in Nigeria? Land use is another area that we have learned. And under this land use, we did look at agricultural land use and non-agricultural land use. Those lands that we can use for agriculture, ranging from crop production, animal production, fishery, and the rest, and non-agricultural use for building of residential houses, industrial houses, construction of roads, mining, and the likes. And these are the two ways we can make use of our land. Now, we also did look at factors affecting availability of land for agricultural production. Another that is where this question has been carved out. One of those factors or reasons that affect the use of land is economic factor. This question is now asking us which of the following is an economic factor that affects the use of land in Nigeria. 1. Construction of markets and commercial homes. B. Construction of waterways and roads. C. Establishment of military installations. D. Establishment of religious institutions. Option A will be our correct answer, because construction of markets and commercial homes is to generate economic benefits. All the other options are social reasons or social factors. And that takes us to question 7. Here the question says, which of the following statements is not a problem associated with the land tenure system through inheritance? I have said that inheritance land tenure system, it means that the ownership of land is passed down from our parents or from one generation to another. This question wants us to identify which one is not a problem of a land tenure system through inheritance. Option A, family member has small land holdings. B, family members have right to free use of land. C, non-family members cannot inherit land. D, farm mechanization is restricted. The only one that is not a problem to land tenure system by inheritance in this option is option B. Family members have right to free use of land. When we inherit land, we are entitled to what we use our land for. But all the other options, starting from option A, family members small farm land holdings, once they keep on the sharing of this land as they are inheriting it from one generation to another, the size of the land keep on decreasing. The size keep on reducing, because if there are 4 in a family, they have divided it to 4 portions. They also gave birth to another set of their own children. It's still going to be divided among each of the family units, and that's why every member has a small land holding. See, non-family member cannot inherit land. Of course, if you are not in that family, you cannot inherit a land that belongs to a particular family. Farm mechanization, once land is small, we cannot mechanize such land. Machine cannot be used. So that takes us to question 8. Land use for agriculture in West Africa is influenced by the following factors, except. So there are some factors which we have been able to look at the social and economic factor of it. This is another one, looking at those factors from another angle. And what are those factors? Which one is out of these options? Population density is a factor. As this population increases, is going to put pressure on the land use for agriculture, because we are going to have other areas that we still have to subject the land to, ranging from socio-economic reasons. B, topography. The nature of the land. Topography is simply, as we remember, is the shape of the land. The shape of the land will determine the type of agricultural production you put the land to. Fallowing is a type of farming system which has nothing to do with land use here, and that's why that option is the correct answer. Fallowing is not part of those factors that affect land use for agriculture in West Africa. The last one, climate, is one of even the major factors that determines our agricultural production. So following is the correct answer to question 8. We go ahead to question 9. A social factor which affects land availability and use is, we have said that if we are under this factor, so many factors, we have looked at a question relating to economic factor. We have seen a question now that is relating to social factor. Now let's see. The social factor which affects land availability and use is dash: A, temperature; soil pH; C, light intensity and duration; D, culture of the people. The first 3 options, they are climatic factors that affect agricultural production, because they are all elements of climate. So with the exclusion of option D, which is the correct one, which is a social factor. So question 10, the following are climatic factors affecting agricultural production, except, which we have been able to look at in question 9. So the correct answer here is topography, because topography here is a soil factor, or what we also call a edaphic factor. Question 11, predators are used by farmers to dash: A, control pests, induce flowering in plants; C, protect the soil; D. Hasting fruit ripening. A is the correct answer. When we set out predators, that is when we look at biological control in our crop production. When we use predator, it means we want to get rid of pests on our farm, and that's the biological control measure. 12. A mill that processes flour for making bread will need dash as its major raw material. The major raw material used in producing flour for the production of bread in Nigeria today still remain option D, which is the wheat. So our flour for bread production is gotten from wheat. Question 13. The most important factor that determines the rate of agricultural development in Nigeria is dash. How developed are we in agricultural production is what this question is looking at. A. Availability of raw materials for industries. B. Number of machinery available in the country. C. Number of people involved in agriculture. D. The readiness of farmers to adopt research results. A is the correct option here. Availability of raw materials for industry goes a long way to tell us how developed we are in agriculture. The number of machinery does not have a major count here. The number of people involved does not also a major count. Once we make use of machine, the number of people involved will be reduced. The readiness of farmers to adopt research results is a factor, but not as important as the availability of raw material we generate will tell us are we developed or we're still the underdeveloped. Question 15. We'll go back again to look at question 14, which has not been looked at. Land use decree has negatively affected land ownership in Nigeria. When the law on land use came into existence, that we refer to as land use decree Act of 1978, it has negatively affected all other forms of land ownership, in the sense that, and that is the area this questions is looking at. So let's see the options we have here. Making land acquisition process bureaucratic in nature. B. Making large land available to farmers. C. Preventing land fragmentation. D. Reducing the frequency of court cases. The correct option here is A. Making land acquisition process bureaucratic in nature. Option B, C, and D, as we will remember, they are the importance of the land use decree of 1975, which make land available to farmers, preventing land fragmentation, and reducing the frequency of court cases. Option A, there is no other form of ownership of land that you get your land from. It still has to pass through the approval of the government, because the Land Use Act states that all land belongs to the government. So we'll go to the next question. Which of the following edaphic factor causes toxicity to plants and animals? We have been able to look at topography in one of the earlier questions we looked at. That is a soil factor, or what we call a edaphic factor. We also here have a list of some other soil factor. Fertility is a soil factor, soil pH is a soil factor, soil structure is a soil factor, and soil texture is also a soil factor. But which one causes toxicity to plants? And that is option B, which is soil pH, which is defined as the degree of alkalinity or acidity of the soil. Question 16. Which of the following emphasizes the importance of agriculture to a nature? Which of the following emphasizes the importance of agriculture to a nature? 1. A. creation of employment opportunities for the masses. B, improvement of farmer standard of living. C, provision of facilities for recreation and tourism. D, source of revenue and foreign exchange. To the nation is to generate source of revenue and foreign exchange, because under importance of agriculture we have break it down to the importance to the farmer and the importance to the nation. So if we look at creation of employment opportunity for the masses is one of the importance to the farmer. Creation of their standard, improvement of farmer standard of living is a benefit to the farmer. Creation of facility for recreation and tourism is an importance to the nation, but it doesn't have much weight as that of source of revenue and foreign exchange to the government. And that takes us to question 17. An advantage of individual system of land ownership is that this individual system of land ownership, we are referring to here to the land tenure system by either inheritance or freehold. So what are the advantages? 1, it encourages land litigation. B, it encourages long-term planning. C, the government pays compensation on the land. D, the land cannot be used as collateral. So option B is the correct one. It encourages long-term planning. Once the land is your own, you can make a future plan on the land usage. Question 18. Which of the following is a non-governmental organization in agriculture? This is another area where we look at role of governmental organization and non-governmental organization. The role of governmental organization is so many: providing finance, providing storage facilities, help farmer controlling pests and diseases, providing agro service centers for farmers, make land available for farmer and the likes. And the non-governmental organization, they majorly go into research, where they establish research institutes in order to improve our agricultural production. So this question wants us to identify which of these is a non-governmental organization in agriculture. Option A, Agricultural Development Programme, is a governmental organization. Agricultural Sector Rehabilitation Programme, it is a government program. Green Revolution is a government program. Option D, which is the correct one, International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, is a non-governmental organization. Other non-governmental organizations we have learned is the West African Rice Development Agency, International Livestock Center in Africa. It's another non-governmental organization which we have looked at in our course of study. And I implore you all to look at the role of each of these organizations, both that of government and non-governmental organizations. Question 19. Agriculture involves the following activities except A, cultivation of land, enforcing the Land Use Act. C, processing of farm produce. D, rearing of animal. All the options except option B, which is the correct one, are the activity involved in agriculture, except enforcing the Land Use Act, which is option B, and that is the only correct option. Question 20. The following are reasons for government assistance to farmers, except these are some of the roles of government organization in agricultural production, and that's why this question comes out here, which is asking for what are the reasons for government assistance, except 1, encouraging land fragmentation. B, improving farmers' welfare. C, increasing output. D, increasing the quality of produce. All other options is correct except option A, encouraging land fragmentation. Question 21. A farmer that receives a non-payable amount of money for 5 years in terms of reduction in the price of tractor from the government agents is said to have received dash. Option A, agricultural dividend, B, grant, C, long-term liability, D, subsidy. One of the role of government in agricultural development is the provision of finance, and under this we have looked at how government provide these finances. We have looked at in terms of providing grants, providing loan, and providing subsidy. Grant is when government give out, maybe in terms of money or farm input, free of charge to farmers. When we talk about loan, such loans is given to farmer. It is a form of grant that is repayable back with interest at a very reduced interest to the farmer. When we talk about subsidy, this is when we bring about a kind of benefit which could form in form of reduction in price or free information to the farmer. So with the example cited in this question is reduction in price, and that's why the farmer will receive what we call subsidy. If it is loan, different forms of loan, and that's why we have option C there, which is short-term liability, medium-term liability, or long-term liability that we have come across in our agricultural economic aspect. Question 22. Which of the following raw materials is used by breweries for their produce? Option A, banana, B, beets, C, cocoa, D, guinea corn. Guinea corn is the correct answer used in the brewery industry here. Question 23. Which of the following is not a role of government in agricultural production? We have looked at some of the role of government. So let's see which one is not a role. 1. Provision of labor. B. Provision of subsidy. C. Building of storage facility. D. Provision of loan and credit. The correct option here is provision of labor from the other question we have treated. Question 24. Which of the following statements about farm settlement scheme is false? Farm settlement scheme is one of the agricultural program by the government. Another one is the Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, ADP program, and the likes. So this one is now centered on farm settlement scheme. Which one is false? Option A, to encourage young people to take up farming. B, to provide employment for young school leavers. C, to develop rural infrastructure. D, for research and publicity. So D is the correct answer here, because farm settlement scheme came into existence in order to prevent the rural-urban drift of the rural farmer and young school leavers in the rural area, in a way of improving agricultural production and to improve their own standard of living by providing rural infrastructures. Question 25. Which of the following statement is not correct about Land Use Act? A, land cannot be used for any purpose. B, government has control over unused land. C, it does not lead to land fragmentation. D, it aims at reallocation of land for farming purpose. All the other options are correct except land cannot be used for any purpose. Question 26. Which of the following agricultural programs cover risk and uncertainty in agricultural business? Still one of the role of government in agricultural production, and one of that role is taken care of by agricultural insurance scheme. So option B is the correct answer. Agricultural development project is one of government program. River Basin Development Authority is also a government program. Farm settlement scheme, which we have earlier looked at, is also one of the program of the government for the farmers. I implore you look at the role of each of these programs all over again. 27. Which of the following statement is not correct about agricultural regulations within a country? They are: agricultural regulations are in place to control all the activities under agriculture in a particular country. And which of them is not correct here? A. Different from one geographical location to another based on the conditions prevailing in a particular country, aimed at maintaining good quality farm produce. D. Aimed at increasing agricultural production. All other ones are correct except A, which is the correct answer. So it's not a correct statement of agricultural regulations within a country. 28. The Land Use Decree of 1978 vested lands in each state of the country on the dash: A. Individual, state government; C. President of the country; D. Commissioner for Agriculture. B is the correct option here, state government, because we have said that the Land Use Decree Act vested land on the federal government, but in turn pass it down to for land under the state to the state governors. The next question, which is question 29. The disadvantage of land fragmentation include the following, except when we continue to divide land that is meant for agricultural production. Of what disadvantage? All other ones are disadvantage except one. So option A, difficulty in effecting soil conservation practices. B, unsuitability of mechanizing such land. C, facilitating the use of simple and cheap tools. D, enhancing wastage of land. All other options are disadvantage except difficulty in effecting soil conservation practices, which has nothing to do with land fragmentation. I hope we remember what land fragmentation is when we continue to divide land that is meant for agricultural purpose for different activity or for different individual, which will not encourage mechanization. And the last question for the day is: problem of land tenure system through inheritance include the following, except 1. Excessive land fragmentation. B. Possession of a portion of the land by every member of the family. C. Sharing of land breeds enmity among family members. D. Ownership of the land may be challenged. All other ones are problem except option B, possession of a portion of land by every member of the family. From the discussion of different forms of the land tenure system that we have looked at, and that of inheritance in particular in the previous questions we have looked at. So this is where we call it a day for this week lesson. I pray to Almighty Allah to spare our life till next week, which we shall be looking at another section of the topics we have covered in this agricultural science class. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.